morning and happy Monday. Today is June 9th. Welcome to another week of Baptist for Liberty. This week it looks like I probably won't have the McCools with me. They are having their vow renewal this week, so be in prayer for them on that. Very excited for them. So this morning I guess we'll take a look at maybe some news that happened over this weekend, or maybe broke out early this morning, and we'll go from there. So one of the Facebook pages that we cover is the 10th Amendment Center, and it looked like a couple of states recently blocked Common Core. Let's see, where's that story? I believe it was South Carolina had been one of the states that originally adopted Common Core, and they opted out of it. Yeah, here, North Carolina passed. It was North Carolina, their House of Representatives. Raleigh, North Carolina, June 4th, 2014. Okay, so that was 4th. Oh, this was last week, not this week. Okay. I had seen something posted like Friday, Saturday, so I was thinking it was closer to the weekend that this came through. Alright, so today the North Carolina House passed a bill that would end the state's involvement in Common Core educational standards, effectively nullifying its implementation within the state. The vote was 78-39. House Bill 1061 went through 2 hectic days. On Tuesday, the House Education Committee rewrote the original bill, removing a number of sections that Common Core opponents wanted out of the bill. They voted 27-16 to send the bill to the House floor, where it passed today on second and third readings. Representatives opposing the bill on the House floor were worried that scrapping Common Core would leave North Carolina with no state standards for education. However, both primary sponsors of the bill, Rep. Larry Pittman and Michael Spichiel, assured the other members that that was not the case. Common Core standards would continue to remain in place for the next year, while North Carolina State Board of Education rewrites the standards for North Carolina schools. The reasoning behind the delay in scrapping Common Core is to smooth the transition back to state-controlled curriculum. That this would give the schools enough time to jettison the Common Core standards that have been foisted upon them without any undue harm being done to the development of students. The primary committee amendment to the bill sets forth the principle that North Carolina, by its constitution, is responsible for the education of the citizens of the state, and it will not cede or limit state control in exchange for federal funding for the public schools. The State Board shall ensure that no official, employee, agency, or board of the state shall enter into any agreement, memorandum of understanding, or contract with any federal agency or private entity which in any way cedes or limits state discretion or control over the development, adoption, or revision of the North Carolina Standard Course of Study and related student assessment in the public school system, including but not limited to agreements, memoranda of understanding, and contracts in exchange for funding for public schools and programs. Common Core gives the federal government the power to collect extensive data from students, including social security numbers, records of school attendance, supposed learning disabilities, religious affiliation, disciplinary records, and parents' income information. The following committee amendment to the bill would strip that ability away from the federal government. No personally identifiable data on students or their families' religions, political party affiliations, biometric information, psychometric data, or voting history shall be collected, tracked, housed, reported, or shared with the federal government. No personally identifiable student data shall be collected for the purpose of the development of commercial products or services. HB 1061 promotes decentralized government and takes control from the unaccountable federal bureaucrats and puts it back into the hands of the people. Common Core's proponents deceptively claim that the curriculum is not the handiwork of federal bureaucrats because it was conceived by the National Governors Association and the Council of Chief State School Officers. However, the NGA has received tens of millions in taxpayer dollars from the federal government over the course of many years. And that's most of this article. Common Core is definitely one of the big fights going on right now. It even affects homeschoolers to some extent. It is a huge, like mentioned in the bill, repealing part of Common Core. Just like with Obamacare, it's a huge measure of tracking information. Like, the government's not really picking up enough of that on our own Facebook pages through the NSA, so there's a lot of different measures that have this backdoor data collecting programs in there. And so good for North Carolina. And, they were more cautious and careful about opting out of it than they were in getting into it with trying to ease their standards or formulate their own state standards to replace Common Core. But perhaps that was just keep the peace in some ways. Okay, as for other stories, that was the only one I remembered seeing this weekend, and as it turned out, it was actually from the middle of last week. There's a lot of other stories that we've posted on our Facebook page. Some of them are from Vice News. I do want, if you watch the Vice News videos, they do use some foul language, but they do actually cover with camera going into places like the Ukraine. They had been in Thailand, but I think they got kicked out of there. So now their coverage of that is only written forms, not videos. So I do like to watch some of their videos, and I do recommend them with the caveat of beware that, it's Vice News. It does air on HBO as well as on the internet. So there's some choice words in there. But if you're interested in what's going on in the Ukraine or some other countries that are melting down right now, they cover those stories really pretty good. I won't say without bias, but they do cover them thoroughly. Another one is rare.us. They've been covering the drug war, and in particular lately there's been, states have been flexing their muscles and repealing federal laws on prohibition of marijuana. In Kentucky, they wanted to start growing hemp for industrial purposes, and the DEA came in and confiscated the seeds that was coming in from Italy. So according to rare.us, The Senate Appropriations Committee approved a plan Thursday that will bar federal agencies from spending money to enforce anti-hemp laws in states that have legalized the plant. This comes after the Drug Enforcement Administration, DEA, seized 250 pounds of hemp seeds originating in Italy on the way to Kentucky, even after the state legislature and the Farm Bill permitted their safe passage for industrial use. The overstep has prompted many to wonder what the DEA is thinking and whether it's an agency gone rogue. And the article continues and reiterates other points that they've made in other articles with dealing with hemp and DEA control. I won't read the full thing, but I'll read in closing. We need to stop the DEA, Craig Lee said directly. That organization needs to be taken down at the knees and disbanded. Get totally rid of it and throw it in the grave with Richard Nixon. So tell us how you really feel, Mr. Lee. And let's see, Mr. Lee was, where is it on here? I don't see. This is the problem with me trying to decide to just read portions of an article so I don't get in trouble for any copyright issues. Well, anyway, the link is on our Facebook page and it will be added to our homepage on the News Blitz. News Blitz is just a section where we try to cover headlines from various sources throughout a month. So I'm going to try to get to where I'm updating that every Monday so we have a selection for every week of the month. Another big issue going on right now is legislation in regards to immigration. So we've shared a few different stories regarding that. BenSwan.com covers quite a few stories regarding immigration. There was also one in the Christian Post regarding a documentary on three different immigrant families. The documentary is called The Stranger. Let's see. And of course, there's always a lot of stuff. You get side swipes sometimes focusing on just one or two stories, and something seems to just pop out of the blue, but it's been brewing for quite a while. One of the re-listening to some of the episodes this weekend, it appears, on one hand, that one of the reoccurring themes that we had going on was study, 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 study. Whatever topic, whatever side you might be on, the key is to study. And of course, the first thing we have to study is the scriptures. That's the most important. And no matter which country you're in, what language you speak, reading the scriptures is for everyone, and it's absolutely paramount. I was trying to think of if I was to recommend maybe two or three books just to get somebody started on politics. What would I recommend to them? For me, the first two books that I really got into, I read, my goodness, I think I was actually in middle school when I read these. I don't think I was in high school yet. I was probably about 12, 13 years old, still in middle school. And one of them is Babylon Mystery Religion, Ancient and Modern, by, what's his last name? Ralph Woodrow. And this was a book from my dad's shelf I had read. Well, I've looked at the covers of multiple of his books on false religions, mythology, and especially Babylon. And so this, though, was the first one I read from cover to cover on the subject. And it's been a really long time since I've read it. I think I've reread it a couple of times since middle school. It's nice, easy read. It's not an uber thick book. The print's nice. It has some pictures in there, which is probably one reason why I decided to read it when I did. And of course, read your Bible as you read any secular books. But then the second book that I read that I think really informed my political views, and it just kind of built up on that, the end times are coming, and it's gonna be one world government. And so I read The Stealing of America by John W. Whitehead. We had quite a few of his books because he is an attorney, and he wrote books on homeschooling and the law and dealing with any legal proceedings if somebody questioned that you were homeschooling and what resources homeschoolers had. And so my mom had quite a few of his books for those reasons, as well as some of his political books. Would I recommend those as being starter books? Actually, I don't think I would. They're what I began with, but I think perhaps a better book to start with would be The Broken Cross, which was a book I reviewed for the newsletter. I don't know how long ago it was, a year and a half ago or more. And it talks about how Hitler manipulated religion in order to manipulate the people. And I mean it's not written by a Baptist, so of course some of the statements in there are off, but for the most part it's actually really good, and I would have quoted a lot of it in my review, but I don't think once I started copying certain phrases in there, I don't think I would have known where to stop. And I think that one's a good book to read, just even if you're just reading for what's going on in most countries. There's manipulation of the media, there's a fake respect for Christianity and religion. So it goes to reveal a lot of the subtleties and what Hitler said versus what he did. Oh, the title of that was Hitler's Cross, written by Erwin W. Lutzer. It was written back in 95. So when it's making comparisons to what's going on in the U.S., it might seem a little dated because it doesn't mention Obama or George W. Bush, but it's very much relevant and still very applicable. Something else maybe for just People in the United States is The Constitution in Exile by Judge Andrew Napolitano, and this book was reviewed by Regina Duncan. And of course, we have an archive of book reviews on our homepage, which again is baptistforliberty.weebly.com. So that's BAPTISTFORLIBERTY.WEEBLY.com. And so we'll have archives for all of our newsletters, for these talk shows, and our book reviews are there too. Regina's reviewed quite a few books for us. I think though, just to be leery, I mean, like, wherever you're at, there's a pull in all of our nations for one world empire, the new world order. So it's not just the U.S., and I don't want to just point out books that deals with the U.S. I think that's one reason why Hitler's Cross the Wall, it does a direct comparison of U.S. politics and Nazi Germany. It works as a warning to any nation, and it goes to show red flags no matter where you're at. And I'm sure if you have that book in your language and you can read it, you'll see some patterns, because human nature is the same, and the psychological mind games, the manipulations, there might be some subtle changes depending on culture, depending on current events, maybe, but for the most part, it's gonna be the same. I mean, Satan's had the same lie from the beginning. Thou shalt surely not die. So, yeah, I think that's a good book that can go across the board. Okay, I think that's pretty much all the time we're gonna have today. If I'm gonna start closing out the show, just reading our Proverbs of the day. And so today being the 9th, our Proverbs today is going to be Proverbs 9, chapter 9. And again, like I said, the first thing you have to study, it's absolute paramount whether you're interested in politics or not, is the scriptures. And of course this applies no matter where you're at. Originally I started this newsletter to focus on American politics, but then doing the point of views column, because I wanted to get the perspective of people, our brothers and sisters living in other countries, and what was going on with them. And it really impressed me, there's a lot of people who speak English, who read English newsletters, listen to English speaking programs. So I don't want to exclude any potential listeners and make them feel like whatever's going on in their nation isn't as important, because it certainly is. And we do want to keep all of our brothers and sisters in Christ in our prayers. We need to pray for the missionaries, pray for the pastors and missionaries that are born in these other lands. God raised up local ministers, and they're just as important as any American missionaries that get sent out. And we need to raise them up in our prayers and thoughts. And for those not yet saved, that God will be saving people in these countries. One I find very encouraging is in Romania. There's a church there, and I just recently read their newsletter, and they have opportunity to speak with people in Germany and other parts of Europe. They have a printing ministry and they write materials in several languages. Um, so yeah, God has His work all the way in Europe and so many different foreign lands. Of course, we've interviewed people in Saudi Arabia, in the Philippines, in Thailand. Hopefully, we'll be able to interview a sister in the Lord in Australia very soon for our very next point of view column. I know of brothers in Nigeria, so yeah, we need to be in prayer for them and not just think, oh, we Americans, we're so special. Anyway, sorry. Okay, so our Proverbs for today is chapter 9. Wisdom hath builded her house, she hath hewn out her 7 pillars. She hath killed her beasts, she hath mingled her wine, she hath also furnished her table. She hath sent forth her maidens, she crieth upon the highest places of the city. Whoso is simple, let him turn in hither. As for him that wanteth understanding, she saith to him, Come, eat of my bread, and drink of the wine which I have mingled. Forsake the foolish, and live. Go in the way of understanding. He that reproveth a scorner getteth to himself shame, and he that rebuketh a wicked man getteth himself a blot. Reprove not a scorner, lest he hate thee. Rebuke a wise man, and he will love thee. Give instruction to a wise man, and he will be yet wiser. Teach a just man, and he will increase in learning. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the holy is understanding. For by me thy days shall be multiplied, and the years of thy life shall be increased. If thou be wise, thou shalt be wise for thyself. But if thou scornest, thou alone shalt bear it. A foolish woman is clamorous. She is simple and knoweth nothing. For she sitteth at the door of her house on a seat in the high places of the city, to call passengers who go right on their ways. Whoso is simple, let him turn in hither. And as for him that wanteth understanding, she saith to him, Stolen waters are sweet, and bread eaten in secret is pleasant. But he knoweth not that the dead are there, and that her guests are in the depths of hell.